We have a question from a viewer here who wants to know what are the chances of a rate increase at the meeting on September 19th?
Our approach has always been data dependent. The Monetary Policy Committee evaluates the trends of economic outlook, inflation, and also the different risk scenarios ahead of us. If you look at economic development, we have seen more growth momentum coming lately. But although growth has become a bit more broad-based, but if you look at the risk scenarios ahead of us, there are quite a number of risk factors that we have to keep our eyes on. For instance, the trade protectionism debate that is going on in the world, and that could have big impact on economy like Thailand or small open economy like Thailand, even though we might not be the target countries of such trade protectionisms, but Thai production is very much intertwined within the East Asian supply chain.
So you're saying fair to deduce then that a September 19 rate hike isn't likely to happen because it's still too early?
We have to evaluate a number of factors, and it's up to the committee to decide.
What's the biggest concern for you right now?
There are quite a number.
Is it the strength of the Thai baht perhaps that could be a hindrance for exporters, for instance?
That's also a concern. The baht has appreciated, ahead of peers at a faster pace than peers. If you look at the nominal effective exchange rate, the baht has appreciated quite significantly during the past month or so. Normally the baht would move in line with peer currencies, but because of our strong external positions, that has led to some investors considering Thai baht as a safe haven currencies among emerging market currencies, and that we're not quite comfortable with if you look at the pace of the Thai baht. That has also resulted in the tightening of the domestic liquidity condition. But we also concerned with other risk factors that we have to keep our eyes on. The recovery of the tourism sector from the both incidents in the south that has resulted in a decline in confidence among a number of Chinese investors. So we saw a drop in tourism activities during the past month or so. But the trade protectionism is something that we have to keep our eyes on. I have to be to remind you that with our strong external positions, the need for Thailand to increase the policy rate is not as eminent as other emerging markets. We have strong enough buffers, so we're not under pressures as other emerging markets that might be vulnerable to the global financial conditions. So we can utilize our monetary policy autonomy to meet the needs of the Thai economy.
I just want to follow up on the Thai baht. Is there a sense that the baht has strengthened too much too fast?
We keep our eyes on that. We have seen some of the inflows lately, particularly in the forms of short-term bonds. But this depends very much on the change of risk appetite of the global investors. But when we receive more than proportionate short-term bonds coming to Thailand, that's something that we have to keep our eyes on closely.
Earlier you touched on concerns about the U.S.-China trade war. How might that impact the Thai economy as well as the Thai baht in the process?
On the Thai economy, we have to look at the different channels through which the trade protectionism can have impact on Thailand. Obviously, if we look at the direct impact, it has been quite small so far. The impact so far has been on the two types of products that were the initial targets of the first phase of trade protectionism, namely solar cells and large-size washing machines. That we saw a drop in our exports to the U.S. market. But when we look at the trade protectionism that have been imposed on China, if we look at value added of Chinese manufacturing products, I think only about half are produced within mainland China. The other half come from the East Asian supply chain, and that hasn't been that visible yet. I think it will take some time before we can have a better picture of how that will be fitting into the supply chain in Thailand.
So is there a chance that you may have to relook at the estimates for GDP growth? I know that for the year it's 4.5%, for next year for 5%. Is there a chance that it will be reviewed?
Our forecast for this year is 4.4. Next year is 4.2. So in the September round of the Monetary Policy Committee meeting, we will also be reviewing the forecast of GDP for this year and next year. The other, to go back to your earlier questions on the factor that we have taken into account when we consider when is the right time to increase our policy rate. The other factor that we look at is inflationary development. Inflation has just returned to the lower bound of our target range. Inflation is still very benign. It has been below the target range during the past 3 years. Obviously, it has been driven mainly by the supply side factors, starting off with energy prices and then food prices. The core inflation momentum is not as strong as we would like to see. But obviously, when you look at inflationary development, it has been driven by a number of structural factors. And this is a question that not only the Bank of Thailand, but central banks around the world are researching, trying to understand better of inflationary development. But we're not under the same inflationary pressure as some of our emerging market peers, and that's another reason why the need for us to increase the rate is not as imminent as other emerging market countries.
You say that you're not under pressure, but it is a higher rate environment, and we're seeing this across the board. Can Thailand afford not to raise rates sooner rather than later?
Well, it's data dependent, as I mentioned. We look at different factors. We look at the impact on capital flows, for instance. Domestic liquidity is still quite ample, and we don't observe any capital outflows lately, even though we have liberalized a number of capital outflows measures. As I mentioned to you.
Any pressure from the Prime Minister's office? Because he's come out to say, his aide has come out to say that will happen, a rate rise will happen by the end of this year.
He's not a member of the Monetary Policy Committee, I'm afraid.
So no pressure there?
Well, we evaluate the situation and the risk factor carefully. That's the approach that we have adopted all along.
What's the biggest risk for Thailand at this point in time, Governor?
I go back to the one that I talked about earlier, the trade protectionism climate, that we also have impact not only on the exports but also on the investment, private investment. Private investment has been very low in Thailand, and we only started to see increasing activities in private investment. But obviously, when people are unsure about the global trade environment, that would have implications on the delay of investment decision. And when you add on top of that, trade diversion mechanisms that could have impact on the different supply chains of different industries, that will also add to the complexity of investment decision.
What impact do you see from the election, which is due next year, if it happens?
That's also something that we have to take into account as well. But Thailand has gone through a lot of political challenges, but the political situation is still quite fluid, and we have to keep our eyes on.